The deputy's eyes stayed locked on the screen, scrolling through file after file, his jaw tightening. "This isn't just zoning fraud," he said finally. "This is racketeering, property laundering. She's been running a shadow HOA network." He turned the monitor toward me. There were folders labeled with names of nearby neighborhoods, places miles away. Karen had been collecting fees from people who weren't even under her jurisdiction. She built an empire out of fear and fake paperwork. I rubbed my temples trying to process it. "So what happens now?" The deputy reached for his phone. "We bring this to the sheriff, the county board, and the FBI. But," he paused, "if she really has connections like this, you need to be careful. People like her don't play fair." Before I could reply, the station's front door slammed open. Another deputy ran in, out of breath. "Sheriff, we got a call. There's a fire at the Maple Creek HOA office." I froze. "Fire?" He nodded. "Whole building going up. Files, servers, everything." Karen's voice echoed in my head. "You have no idea how deep this goes." Within minutes, sirens screamed down the road. I followed them out, staying behind as the fire trucks roared toward the HOA headquarters. By the time I arrived, the sky was thick with black smoke. The sign that once said Maple Creek Homeowners Association lay in ashes, and Karen stood across the street, pretending to cry while talking to a news crew. Henry appeared beside me, his face grim. "She's burning the evidence," he muttered. "Classic move. If there's no paper trail, she'll spin the story." But she didn't know one thing. I'd already made backups, not just one. I'd uploaded them to a public drive that morning, right before heading to the sheriff's office. I looked at the flames, then at Karen pretending to dab fake tears with a tissue. "Let her burn it," I whispered. "She's just lighting her own match." That night, the videos of Karen's meltdown, her fake cops, her screaming threats, started spreading online. People tagged the local news, property rights groups, and even veterans' pages. By morning, it had over 2 million views. Karen tried to deny everything in a shaky press statement, calling it a misunderstanding. But then the county's official website quietly posted an update: Maple Creek HOA operations suspended pending federal investigation. Henry knocked on my door later that afternoon with a grin and a newspaper under his arm. "Looks like justices got wheels," he said. I took the paper, looked at the headline, "HOA President Under Federal Scrutiny for Property Fraud," and smiled for the first time in weeks. But just as I turned to close the door, I saw something wedged under the welcome mat. A small, sealed envelope, my name written in perfect cursive. Inside, just one line again. "You exposed her, now they'll come for you." My fingers tightened around the letter. The handwriting was too neat, too calm, not Karen's. Her notes were always rushed, angry scratches. This one looked professional, deliberate. I stared out at the empty street, the late afternoon sun throwing long shadows across the pavement. Everything looked normal, too normal. I locked the door, grabbed my phone, and called the deputy. "You at the station?" "Half of it," he said grimly. "Sheriff's office just got raided by feds. They took everything from the Maple Creek files, said it's classified now. We're out of the loop." "Classified," I repeated. "You mean?" "Yeah," he said. "Whatever Karen was part of, it's bigger than property lines." Then his voice dropped. "You didn't make enemies with just a local HOA, buddy. You kicked a hornet's nest tied to money and politics." A chill crawled up my spine. "So what now?" He sighed. "Lay low, don't talk to anyone you don't trust. If they reach out, let me know first." I hung up, pocketed my phone, and went to the garage. The hidden drive, the one I'd tucked beneath my workbench, was still there. I pulled it out, plugged it into my laptop, and scrolled past the old folders until I found one I hadn't seen before: internal GovAuth backup. My cursor hovered over it. I hesitated for a second, then clicked. Inside were scanned letters, all stamped with the same seal, Department of Urban Development, and right under the stamp was Karen's name. Her HOA wasn't just local, it was part of a pilot program for a federal housing project meant to test private governance models. She twisted it into her own empire using fake signatures and real government funding. Suddenly, headlights flashed through my window. A black sedan rolled to a stop outside my driveway, the same kind as before, no plates. 2 men stepped out, suits crisp, expressions blank. One of them held up an ID badge too fast for me to read. "Mr. Carter," the taller one called, voice sharp but calm. We need to speak with you about your recent activities regarding the Maple Creek HOA investigation. I didn't move you with the FBI. He smiled faintly, something like that. Behind him, the second man opened the trunk not to pull out a weapon but a black folder. Inside, I saw a single sheet of paper with my name on it, and underneath it one chilling phrase. Asset of interest, acquire for debriefing. My pulse raced, Henry's words echoed in my head, people like her don't play fair. I took a step back toward the house, hand slipping toward my phone. You got a warrant? I asked, keeping my voice steady. The man didn't answer, he just looked at me and said quietly, you have something that doesn't belong to you. And in that instant I realized it was Karen I had to worry about anymore. It was whoever she'd been working for. I froze in the doorway, every instinct screaming at me to run, but I kept my face calm. The taller man stepped closer, polished shoes crunching against the gravel. The setting sun hit his badge again, just enough for me to catch 3 letters this time, DHS, Department of Homeland Security. My throat went dry. What did a homeowner dispute have to do with Homeland Security? I don't know what you're talking about, I said, forcing a small, nervous laugh. You've got the wrong guy. He tilted his head. You uploaded restricted data to the cloud this morning. We traced the IP here. Behind him, the second man's hand brushed his jacket, just grazing what looked like a holstered weapon. I lifted my hand slowly. That data proves Karen was scamming people, I said, that's all. The taller man smirked faintly. You think she was running this alone? Before I could answer, a voice shouted from the corner of the yard, Henry. Back off, gentlemen, he said, stepping out with a phone in his hand. I'm on a live call with the county sheriff and you'll want to be careful whose orders you're following. The agents turned toward him, tension thick enough to taste. The older man didn't flinch. I built this land, I know what's on it. You take one more step and this entire conversation goes public right now. For a moment, no one moved, then the taller one lowered his hand slightly, his tone shifting. You don't know what's in those files, old man. Henry took another step closer. You mean the ones that show government funds rerouted through fake HOAs to shell companies in DC? Oh, I've seen enough to know you're not here for justice. The agents exchanged a look. Then, without another word, they turned, got back into their sedan and drove off. The hum of the engine faded down the street until all that was left was the sound of crickets and my heartbeat hammering in my chest. I looked at Henry. How did you? He raised a hand. You're not the first they tried to bury. I've been keeping copies of those maps and permits for decades. Karen was just a pawn. There's someone above her, someone in the state office. The words hit like a punch. So what do we do? Henry's eyes hardened. We go public, every file, every dollar, let the people see it before they can hide it again. That night we worked in silence, uploading everything, the deeds, the emails, the audio recordings to a dozen servers across the internet. When the final upload hit 100%, Henry leaned back and smiled faintly. They'll come for us, he said. Let them, I replied. At least now they'll have to do it in daylight. The next morning, every major news outlet in the state carried the same headline. Federal HOA program exposed, millions in fraud and illegal seizures under investigation. Karen's face was on every screen, not as a victim, but as the start of a scandal that went straight to the state capitol. But just when I thought it was over, a knock echoed at my door, not pounding, soft, polite, almost gentle. I opened it carefully. A woman stood there, mid-30s, black blazer, no badge. She smiled faintly. Mr. Carter, she said quietly, you did the right thing, but you just exposed something we weren't ready for. I frowned. Who are you? She handed me a card, no name, just a number and 3 words printed in gray ink. I stood there on the porch, the woman's perfume still lingering faintly in the air as she walked away. The card felt heavier than paper, like a quiet threat disguised as advice. Keep your doors locked, 3 words that sounded simple but carried a promise of something much bigger. I stepped back inside, locked the door and stared at the number printed beneath those words. No agency, no title, no logo, just 10 digits. I almost called it, thumb hovering over the screen, but my gut stopped me. Instead, I slid the card into my pocket and turned on the news. Karen was on every channel again, this time in handcuffs, crying as reporters shouted questions. "Do you have anything to say about the illegal property seizures?" one called. "Were you working for someone higher up?" Karen just shook her head, mascara running. "You don't understand," she kept saying. "I was told to do it. They said it was legal." I whispered under my breath. Henry came by a few hours later, tired but grinning. "Well, the witch finally burned herself," he said, holding up a newspaper. "She's looking at 20 years minimum. You did it." But his smile faded when he saw my face. "What's wrong?" I handed him the card. He turned it over, eyes narrowing. "No agency mark," he muttered. "That's not good." "She came here this morning," I said quietly. "Said I exposed something they weren't ready for." Henry exhaled, rubbing his forehead. "Then we hit a nerve, and if she's right, that means the real players aren't done yet." That night I couldn't sleep. Every noise made me flinch, every passing car made me check the window. Around midnight I noticed something odd. The porch light flickered 3 times, then went dark again. Same pattern as before. I went outside slowly, flashlight in hand. The air was still heavy, like the world was holding its breath. That's when I saw it, a small black drone hovering just above the fence line. Its camera light blinked red once, then zipped off into the trees. I ran to the yard and looked down. On the ground, half buried in dirt, was another envelope. This one wasn't sealed, just folded neatly. Inside was a single photo. Me and Henry sitting at the dining table last night uploading the files. The angle was from inside the house. My stomach dropped. I looked around, the windows, the vents, even the old wall clock, and then it hit me. I turned toward the bookshelf, the one the previous owner had left behind. A faint red light blinked from behind it. A hidden camera. Someone had been watching us the entire time. I yanked it out of the wall and crushed it in my hand, my pulse thundering. Henry's words from earlier echoed in my head. "They'll come for us." I grabbed my phone and texted him. "They've been inside, don't come over." But the message failed to send, no signal. Outside in the distance, an engine started, slow, steady, and getting closer.